Hi, I'm Naomi Lord. I'm Director of Creative Learning and Partnerships at Bolton School Boys Division in the Northwest. And it's a real pleasure to spend 15 minutes talking to you about some of the pupil-led work that we carry out in our setting, in classrooms, as project work with the school community, within our local community, and in partnership, as well as the partnerships that might arise as part of a project process. Just give me a moment to share my screen. In terms of the broader content of what I'll talk about, I'm really interested in the project work that removes barriers to pupils' connection to the world at large, and by the same token, bringing the world at large to bear on what we do in the classroom, in a practical skill sense, and also in the sense of real world priorities and relevance. A question we might ask ourselves is, what would a school without walls look like? Metaphorical walls, that is. And what does teaching and learning practice look like when it is blended with community activity and interests? Even work that is a step in this direction requires a pedagogical retake, a re-examination of classroom dynamics. It also involves consideration of school-wide programming in terms of time, in terms of opportunity, to include the time and space for community engagement and partnership models. We are lucky to have a fortnightly enrichment time carved out to this end, aptly named Space. It is a chunk of time that sets us well on our way to all kinds of escapades. Here are some of the questions I intend to touch upon within the bigger possibilities I suggested. Why pupil-led work is essential, not least because we are working in a context of reinvigorated prioritisation of fair representation and equality alongside the big rethinking assessment debate. Why pupil-led in relation to creative work? And let's be clear here. I'm talking about creativity as it manifests in arts practice, yes, but also creativity in terms of skills and how that is manifested through everything we do. Big C and little c creativity, if you will. I'll also talk about why it's important to take learning outside of the classroom and relate that to who programs the arts and culture we consume. That question loops back to the classroom. Who composes the activities and focuses and imagined outcomes of what we carry out in our classrooms, and what impact does channeled or siloed learning have on pupils' creative capabilities? I will touch lightly upon why partnerships are essential to this form of work too. The fields of knowledge we explore in our classrooms are expansive, but is our practice and by extension the learning opportunities we avail our pupils? My background includes 15 years as an English and drama teacher with experience in arts and media studies classrooms too. Latterly, I work to lead creative learning and partnerships for my setting, a self-designed evolving role, and as a specialist leader of cultural education with the Northwest's Arts Council Bridge Curious Minds. I think that we're all well aware that the type of work that happens in these classrooms is often discursive, can be highly collaborative, and typically has applied outcomes in the form of anthologies, exhibitions, films, and theatre productions. In the creative arts classroom, we already work from a place where our work is often pupil-led. And I want to think about that form of project work and amplify it. Here are a couple of early examples from our setting where we began to link our theatre work to pupil and school community voice. For a number of years, we've worked with a theatre company in residence, and over a couple of years, as you can see illustrated on the screen, we produced verbatim theatre projects where we use the language of crowdsourced content to script the pieces, to present our school community ideas back to our school community verbatim. On the left-hand side, you can see a poster for a production of Out of Order. The origin of the project was the SMSC topics of rule of law, race and British identity. We generated the piece by sending questionnaires out to our wider community and workshopping the project with Year 9s to draw in their thoughts, and then pulled the arising content together into a script we rehearsed up and presented in a drama festival that year. The example to the right, My Room, My Bolton, focused on asking community what their relationship was with their hometown, how they understood it, and how in turn others understood them as Boltonians. In the project illustrated to the right of the screen, this was a project in which young people explored mass observation as a source of theatre. I guess we can term the 1930s Mass Observation Project the birth of sociology. It began in Bolton as a formal observation of everyday life, creating what has become an anthropology of ourselves, a social science. My Room, My Bolton was shared via partnership events at Bolton's Transport Interchange, Manchester Art Gallery, and at the Lady Lever Gallery on the Wirral. There are other projects that I could point to as well: school community open arts exhibitions, art projects to respond to live public art briefs, and our Arts Award projects. Our Arts Award offer extends to all of Year 7, providing arts taster sessions to begin, and then the opportunity to choose a focus, to expand the scope of that focus via research and inspiration sessions, and with the support of art staff as Arts Award mentors to complete the project, share skills learned with others, and to present the results as a shared exhibition at the end of that process. All this said, there was something that still didn't feel quite right. That whilst we were given the opportunity for independent collaborative work with a sense of community collaboration, we were still missing something: brass tacks. The work was by and large being designed by myself or other creative arts staff with input from our partnership leads. We were very, very earnestly focused on opportunities for authentic representation, but still designing and controlling the parameters of that expression. So what does it take to get to a place where teachers, pupils, and arts organisations work together in a flattened power dynamic, and moreover, do so in a socially applied manner? This isn't something that happens overnight. It is something that requires considerable groundwork, and it is where we've arrived due to long-term partnership work and learning from those connections. Let's look in more detail at some of the ways that we might set groundwork for work of this kind. At a recent cultural educational partnership conference, the National Gallery's Learning and Programmes lead shared a statistic that I can't shake, and one that will help to drive our focus on the conceptual difference between the work I have spoken about and the work that I will go on to discuss. Karen Esley drew from the Children's Rights Index 2020 report that was published in May last year. In these stats, the UK was ranked 169th out of 182 countries, behind Yemen, Sierra Leone, Sudan, and Iraq. The best countries were Iceland, Switzerland, and Finland, and the report synthesizes comparative data and from five key areas: right to life, to health, right to education, protection, and enabling environment for children's rights. It is the UK's performance in the last of these categories which assesses the extent to which countries have operationalised the general principles of the CRC: non-discrimination, best interests of the child, respects for the views of the child, and participation, an extent to which there is a basic infrastructure for making and implementing child's rights policy, which has led to the poor score. So in terms of self-actualisation, our young people in the UK rank behind those of war-torn countries. And that to me was a moment that was perspective making. It certainly girded my purpose. Our pupils have brains in their heads, but they cannot steer themselves in whichever direction they choose. This makes the case for the provision of blended skills, knowledge, and experiential applied learning, not as a discussion, but as a duty. Think too of calls to reimagine assessment and hear them as a call for human, pupil-centred design of our education system. Pause for a moment to consider the individuals who feel disconnected, weird, and uninspired because the work set before them isn't representative of who they are and doesn't begin to provide a range of agile and responsive ways to connect them with the forms of work they will encounter and real-world priorities. So, how do we start to set opportunities before our pupils so that they have greater ownership over them, so that they feel connected to the world, and in turn, that they feel welcome and inspired in our classrooms? What follows is an outline of our way in. Over a series of 3 enrichment afternoons, focused upon regional and local culture and heritage, we asked our Year 9s to tell us what they understood by those terms, arts, culture and heritage, and how, where and why they participated in arts and culture. The survey told us that our students believed that arts and culture carried intrinsic value, that their value was something inherited, passed down, and defined by arts organisations such as galleries, museums, and theatres, and that students believe that arts and culture occasionally happen to them rather than being part of the fabric of their everyday lives. Add to this picture that the independent creative activity that students reported happened most frequently at home, in parks and shopping complexes, and generally in forms other than the ones we traditionally offer in schools. Students' majority opinion was that traditional arts venues presented work that was irrelevant to them, and that they were not populated by their kind of people. They found it difficult to point to arts practice other than fine arts, performance, and the direct technical support and curation of those practices. It became clear that to improve student relationships with arts and culture, we needed to listen to our students, really listen, and then to broker conversations with different sectors to connect students to cultural organisations and their networks. Through engaging students in projects connected to community, we develop students' creative thinking whilst listening to the hearts and minds of our students. As a result of listening to our students, we have begun to evolve our approach to creative learning, thinking deeply about how we connect our students' experiences with public forums and agendas, to provide them with the opportunity to contribute to their immediate opportunities, communities, opportunities, and wider networks. We're keen that arts and culture do not happen to our students, but rather that our students are facilitated to habitually engage in creative practice, to co-create meaningful projects that are relevant to them and that connect them to the diverse landscape of arts, culture, and heritage. This journey begins with listening to students' interests and beliefs and creating opportunities for them to explore and represent their home cultures in their work projects. One such project is our collaboration with Manchester International Festival and a number of freelance creative producers. We designed an 8-week Saturday morning programme to deepen students' creative engagement with their neighbourhoods and to develop awareness of skills and practices within the arts sector. Our key aim of the project was to support young people to have a creative response to their local areas, with the programme encouraging them to develop the skills to design and lead on their own neighbourhood projects. We opened this project to schools across the Bolton Borough via school partnership networks, but also via Bolton at Home's neighbourhood networks, employing a light application process. The Your Manifesto project is now in its 6th week of delivery. We drafted an offer. You can see that on the left-hand side of the screen. The project is delivered digitally and remotely, which allowed focus on home and in your neighbourhood considerations, as well as catering for COVID restrictions. We are currently creating together in response to a Summer of Reconnection, a town festival brief, Looking forward to meeting in person in the not too distant future. There is square focus on providing the requisite skills and conceptualization to design and deliver value-led, socially engaged arts events. The session design is responsive to the direction the project group's ideas evolve in, and are similarly underpinned by inspiration, skills, and networking sessions to support their project growth. You can see in the slide examples that the way we co-design as facilitators is the way we work across the project with the young people involved. We also provide the limitations of what is possible openly and use those limitations as creative inspiration. Process really is prize, and we are building impressive arts sector CVs as we go. There are plenty of other ways to use action research on a smaller scale or habitually. Action research is a process of disciplined inquiry to better understand an issue and then take steps to improve it. Actively listening to students and the wider community is a key element of action research and can be a creative exercise in itself. These creative dialogues can then be drawn into project design and built into the development of live projects responsive to students' needs and interests. Recently, our whole school completed the Mass Observation Mantelpiece Directive in an offline day of remote learning. Students related to us in various forms, the family heritage, stories, and shared values displayed with pride in their homes. We have looked at the patterns in this data set, for instance, noticing how many households displayed various forms of handcrafted Arabic calligraphy, and we'll use this information to introduce themes and activities into our repertoire of arts activities. Referring back to the information students gave us about their lack of agency in art and culture, it is clear that we must explore more student-led classroom practice to engage our pupils. Some of our Year 12s are involved in the Royal Society of Arts Pupil Design Award, employing design thinking to work through iterative processes in response to briefs concerned with digital education, the design of learning environments and routes to empowerment, unveiling hitherto marginalised histories to design better forms of education moving forwards. The focuses are relevant to current local, national, and global concerns and discuss the circumstance pupils find themselves directly in. We have connected this work to alumni and other invited expertise. In the case of artist Ibrahim Mahama attending a panel discussion he was part of and then asking him if he would support our discussions. Pupils found themselves in a video call to the Savannah Centre for Contemporary Art in Tamale, Ghana, as a result. We broaden creative and cultural conversations via our creative magazine too. Pupils, staff and alumni submit articles that circle around current interests and concerns. The most recent edition allied to the Design Awards briefs. The simple action of listening and noticing details of students' home cultures and representing these factors in our work begins to demonstrate to students how all elements of their daily experience are crafted or designed on a different level, introducing live briefs that focus on the correlation of contemporary global focuses with pupil experience, allows students to position themselves in the world as active agents in matters that concern them. This is certainly different to using student feedback to create a project such as the MIF collaboration, the arts organisation meeting young people on their turf to realise their interests. However, perhaps involvement in work that is representative of who students are and that is increasingly self-driven is the beginning of moving towards a more habitual co-creative practice in which educators, external partners, and students design projects with real-world impact that are representative of their own communities. Thank you.